Joanne McCauley. Good morning.
Good morning.
So nice to have you here. And I must say that I've just known you a few short years. Would it be around 5 years or 4 years that you've been in?
It's 4 years.
4 years. You've
I
been
came in 2011.
here. And what a gift you've been to the Literacy Center. And as an interim administrator, I hope we can talk about campus administrator, God bless you. At some point, I hope we can talk about that. But what fascinates me is that your religious name was Sister Thomas Aquinas.
Right.
And how did that happen?
It happened by design. Our community was a little low on vocations, and the former Sister Thomas Aquinas was dying of cancer. And the prioress said to her, "Your job when you get to heaven is to send us lots of vocations." And so she did. There were 18 of us in all, not all at the same time, but 18 was a large number for us. And they said that they would give the name to someone in that group. And so I was the privileged one. I feel it a serious honor to be named that.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Tell us where you were born, Joanne.
Well, I was born probably exactly in the middle of the state of Washington. The city, Wenatchee, is almost directly in the middle. It's where the Columbia River intersects with a lot of other rivers, and so the city was born, and I was born there.
And that's on the, what would you call it, the east side of the Cascades?
That's absolutely correct.
Great.
There are two sides, and it's divided by the Cascade Mountains, and the western side is the industrial side, and the eastern side is more agricultural, although there are industries and different things occur there.
So one day, did you just decide to mountain climb and come over to Everett, Washington?
The day I'd mountain climbed.
How did you meet up with the Dominicans out west?
I met them because I went to a boarding school in Seattle in my freshman year of high school. My dad put my brother and me both in boarding schools because there was really no one stepping forward that could take care of us. And my grandmother lived in Seattle, and she mentioned to my dad that there was a nice convent school down the block from her, and it had a boarding school. So I entered the boarding school at the age of 14 and went through high school and met the Dominican Sisters, who I adore, and their fun-loving, joyous attitude, their commitment to the poor, their commitment to study, their inclusion, the family-like spirit just drew me to them. I feel honored that I was allowed to enter.
Beautiful. And you said you had a brother. Tell me about your brother.
My brother was adopted when I was 4 years old, and he's been a joy to my life, although we haven't been terribly close simply because we were separated so much during our life. And after we began high school, he was in a different boarding school. So, just summer vacations was pretty much our time together.
Does he live out west? No.
He does. He lived in eastern Washington until this year. He moved to Arizona. I still don't even have his address. He hasn't been able to share that with me yet.
Yeah. And tell me about your dear mother.
Well, my mother was a fascinating woman, really. I don't know her well because she died when she was 34, when I was 8. However, when I went in later years to visit her tombstone, she's buried in Idaho, I said to my dad, "Why does it have a C on her tombstone? What's the C about in her name?" And he said, "Well, that's her maiden name. She's a feminist. Her name's Cunningham, so it has to be C." So I didn't realize, but she was a teacher, as was her mother and her grandmother. So there are 4 generations of teachers in our family. But my mother wanted a child, even though she contracted diabetes at the age of 14 and was advised not to have a child. that it would be very harmful, could possibly kill her. And she and my dad really wanted a child, and so I came along, and she died when I was 8. So
Those 8 years, do you feel like you were a spoiled child?
oh, yes. I was the first grandchild on my maternal side, and long awaited and very special. My mother brought me up. I was going to be a lady, I know, but that kind of changed when she died. She could sew and bake, and she did all those feminine, motherly things, and a real leader. And I have a picture of her when she was teaching. She taught 3rd grade, and she looked like her students. They were all the same size. But
Did your father remarry?
no, he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
I think that she was the love of his life, and he just didn't find anyone else.
Was it through your father that you grew to love airports?
I do love airports. I love airplanes. Yes, he was in the Second World War, which is when I was 7. He was drafted by the government to build airports. He was a civil engineer, and the Oregon coast was very vulnerable to Japanese submarines, and so they needed a lot of planes to fly in there, and so my dad built a lot of airports. And before the airport would open, he would take me out in the car, and we would go to the airport, and I could sit on his lap, and I got to drive the car. So I loved airports, and I love cars, and loved driving ever since.
So did you move from,
Oh, yes, we moved
from city to city?
city to city, town to town, village to village. I went to 10 elementary schools before I got out of the 8th grade. Actually, before I got out of the 5th grade. We moved all the time. In fact, I went to one school 2 times.
That prepared you for your missionary life in the Dominican order.
It did. Move about, yes.
Tell me, coming from the original Everett Dominicans, and then they became known as Edmond Dominicans because you changed your mother house location. But was your formation similar to the Dominicans here in Adrian? Have you picked that up since you've been on campus?
I think it was very similar. I think that, both Adrian and the Edmund sisters came from the tree, Ratisbon, New York. And then from New York, the sisters were sent, some to Aberdeen in Washington, and some to, I believe, Traverse City in Michigan,
right.
and then moved to Adrian. Our heritage stems from the same. The Dominican charism is deep within both groups. We're not so different. Cultures are different. The actual Dominican essence is the same, is what I feel.
Were you of the age where you kept silence and we had the hours chanted in chapel, right? Yes.
Yes, and profound silence.
Yes.
And expanded rosaries.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if you called them expanded rosaries, but
Outstretched arms.
correct. For a long rosary.
Did you pray with outstretched arms?
Oh, well, not unless we were breaking profound silence. It was a penance.
There were other penances too, correct?
Oh, yes, the same as you enjoyed.
Yes.
Yeah.
You told me once that there were 1,400 canons about religious life.
Well,
That's
what I
kind
was
of
taught.
overwhelming.
Yeah, I don't think I ever heard all of them, but it seemed like I know someone said at some time to me that there were 14 canons that dealt with religious life. That probably took in the priests and the brothers too. Sure, it wasn't directed entirely to sisters, but we were well governed by canon law.
Yes, for sure. Tell me about your novice director.
My novice director and my postulant director were awesome people. One thing about being small is you know the people very well. we never, I don't think we ever had more members than 200. And so, like I said, our group, our
16.
Yes, we had 18 in altogether. The novice mistress and the postulate mistress, they were very good friends and worked much together with us. They instilled in us a love of study and an appreciation of education and also of what it meant to be a Dominican. And I think we mentioned before, you and I, when we were speaking, that that silly book was around about be obedient religious, if told to plant a flower upside down, would do that. And both my novice mistress and postulate mistress thought that was preposterous. And my age group was pre-Vatican, and we were told maybe if your superior was strong enough, you would obey that you would plant it upside down, but never believe that that's the way it should go. That we stand for truth, we believe in truth, we proclaim truth, and never get mixed up about it. Now, after the Second Vatican Council, the groups that came in then were told, don't even plant it. That's not truth. Don't do silly things.
Were most of your missions where you were placed out west, or did you ever get to the Midwest or the South?
The only time I taught all the time in the state of Washington. I was a classroom teacher for 12 years, and then I was principal. In addition to that, though, I met up with a group of educators that formed an institute, and they were dedicated to teaching dyslexic people, children and adults, and had developed a system, basically phonics. And I came to using that, and the goal of that institute was to send people out, directors, to different groups of teachers and teach them how to use the system. So I taught in California, Oregon, Texas, Iowa, that pretty much, and a lot of places in the...
What place stands out most in your memory as life-changing?
The life change of my whole life was Dallas, Texas. I thought I knew who the poor were. I was never rich myself. I thought I understood that. I thought education was in a good place, even though a paper had been published by the government that said it was in trouble in 1981. And so I went to Dallas with 4 other members of the Institute, and we worked with children, the underprivileged children, in Dallas, Texas. Now, the Dallas, Texas had a population of students of 121,000 in one large district. Mm-hmm. So we had a very small group. We had 90 children and 45 teachers. What I learned from that, this was the year that the Republicans were holding their national convention in Dallas. And so the edict went out that anybody who was poor, which always meant African-American people, right, would follow all the laws. No broken windows, no trash, no anything. Look clean and beautiful. Those folks had to fix their windows at enormous cost. They ate dog food to make up for the expense. The children we worked with, this was a time when the affirmative action was taking place, and so all the children were allowed to go to, quotes, white schools, but they weren't really allowed to. They had to sit in the back of the room. They couldn't play with the other children. And when they came to us in the summer for our summer school, they had to walk, when they walked in a row somewhere, they had to bend forward and put their arms behind their back, hold their hands behind their back. So they were in a subservient situation. Okay. If they didn't know something, they would cry, and their teachers would be mad at them because they practiced tutoring them. The teachers were mad at them because they thought it made the teachers look. And there was definitely a class society. The teachers, even though they were also African American, were a class above these children.
Oh my.
The children, they sent a bus around to pick them up, and the kids, rode the bus. That's one day the bus didn't pick up a number of them. And one child walked all the way. It was several miles, and he got there about noon when we were finished. And we said, "Why did you come? It was so far, and your bus didn't come." And he said, Well, I thought my teacher might miss her little boy, but we found out that morning his brother had been shot to death on his front porch in a bad drug deal.
Well,
They
that
didn't have-
stays with you.
Yeah, they didn't have enough clothes. They didn't have food when the government furnished hot lunch for them, and those kids would be in the garbage cans after lunch to pick up the scraps to take home to their families. It touched me in a way that I thought, I'm privileged to be with these people, and I bonded with them. I'll never forget what it means to be underprivileged in any way.
And how did you continue to keep in touch with them once you got back to the
Well, I
north?
was rabid. I couldn't believe that American citizens were treated that way. And so I went back to Washington, where my nice little affluent Catholic school was, and said, we've got to do something. And the parents, they were really amenable to it. They collected clothes and money and food, and we had so many truckloads that it would cost so much to ship it that they found out that if you put it on a ship and take it out over there's a certain route. You have to go so far out into the ocean, and then you're international, and then you come back in. And so somehow those guys figured out what to do, and we sent tons of stuff down there. But it's not enough. The whole culture of the United States has to change, and it troubles me that we feel sorry for other nations, and I do feel sorry for them, but that this is going on in our country in a way that we sweep under the carpet and don't even recognize.
And that was 1981. 81.
And I don't think it's improved much.
No. The school that provided all of these resources for the poor in Dallas, was that where you were principal?
Oh, that's one of the places.
One of them.
Yes.
And before you came to Adrian, you were a principal, correct?
In a different school.
Where was that?
I was principal in Everett my last time.
Mm-hmm. And for how many years?
Too many.
Too many.
Around 20.
20 years. Well, what did it feel like coming to Adrian? What year would that have been?
2011, I came here.
Mm-hmm.
I was very involved in the merger process, though. Our whole community was. At that time, we numbered 55. And we did a lot of studying of ourselves, and it seemed to us that as our numbers diminished, we were forced to take care of ourselves, and we didn't have enough personnel to really reach out for the sake of the mission. We said, we've either got to just give it up and get smaller, or we've got to join something larger and somehow pass it on. And so we sent letters to all Dominican congregations that numbered 100 members or more. And then our team leaders visited them. And, well, they wrote to them first. And some said, well, we don't want to merge. And others said, well, we talked with it. And so they visited everybody. And they came back from Adrian, and they said, we could tell by looking at them that they thought this was the place. They just could feel it. The history's the same. We saw the same people on your history boards as we knew. The council at that time was so welcoming and so open, transparent in what was going on in Adrian and how we would fit in.
It was Sister Janet Capone and
Janet
her
Capone
council.
and her council, yes. I can remember one time we came and there was a discussion there were about maybe 5 of us that came to visit, and there was a discussion about whether we should pay to stay in Weber. And I can remember Maureen Comer said, if you're Adrian, you don't pay. You're Adrian, you don't pay. And we said, we're Adrian. But there was that inclusive way. It was very, very energizing. And I was eager to come. And then as merging. And then when I actually moved here, I'm getting decreased hearing. I have a hearing loss, and it's getting worse. And it got so that in my school, I felt like I wasn't really doing an active, adequate communication. And so I mentioned to the parents that I thought it would be about time to retire. And they said, oh, no, don't go yet. Wait till my kid graduates. Just wait, until we do this, and we're building that. And I said, well, I'm 75. And they said, what, you're 75? And they practically packed my bags for me. So, and then I got here, and I said, well, I have a hearing loss, and I'm 75. And they said, well, why did you come so young? So it's all relative. But Carlene Malley invited me to be part of the Literacy Center, and that was a really natural progression for me to leave teaching these kids who had learned differently and coming to adults and teaching them. And mostly my learners are regular American kids that went through American schools, and so their problem is not language, their problem is they learn differently. And it's a joy to work with that and watch them achieve. And they say, I've learned more in these 3 months than I did in my whole school year because they couldn't learn. Oh. So I'm grateful to be part of that.
Did I understand that when you were merging with the Dominicans and Adrian, that the sisters at Edmonds were challenged by the way we did our budgets?
Oh.
Do you remember that at all?
Well, I know that we did budgets, and then we turned them in, and they said, well, you don't do them that way. And so pretty much, in my experience, the Adrian sisters helped me with my budget. I think the Adrians had more money than we did, although I understand when we merged that we brought $11 million in property and cash with us. So we didn't merge because we were poor. Right. We merged because we wanted, for the sake of the mission, to keep it going. But the budget system is interesting.
Little different.
Very interesting. Well, I have the hang of it now.
Yes,
so
I'm sure.
After 12 years.
Who are some of the sisters that you can identify now at the DLC here on campus that came from the Edmonds congregation?
I had a piece of paper.
I think it's right below you there. Yeah.
There are 10 of us here,
Yes.
So I didn't want to miss anybody. So I put them in alphabetical order.
Of course.
All right. Dorothy Berg was the administrator at Rosary Heights, and she also was a principal before that and a teacher. She's going to be working with Mary Jane Levinsky. Barbara Beaker is an artist and a really productive artist. She lives in the DLC, kind of has some memory differences, so not as active. Rosaire McAuliffe was a teacher and parish work a lot, and the essence of flower arranging and growing, and a seriously good artist on her own. There's me. I think if I've done anything, it's to try to help those who are underprivileged in any way.
Yes.
Marion O'Loughlin. Marion was a teacher and also very, very hard worker in parish life in California. Now I think she's kind of the hospitality expert here at the Maria Lobby. Philomena Peralt still does sacristy linens, and she does some of the mail, and constantly keeps us all in line. She's our oldest former Edmonds, and I think she'll be around 90. There's a lot of discussion about her age, so we have to go to the archives and find out how old she is.
She spent time in Haiti, too, didn't she?
She did. Yes, she did. We worked in Mexico with one of the priests down there, Father Wasson, and he started an orphanage, a neat deal with the Mexican people. They came to his compound and were taught, and then, or else he sent them here, but they always had to come back and serve their own community for a certain amount of time. And so it was an ongoing thing that made them better people, and they came back and shared what they had accomplished. She went to Haiti with him, aside from that, and worked with the orphans. And her greatest joy was those little orphan Haitian babies. And she has pictures of them. She's also an awesome stamp collector. So So she has treasures of stamps that she says someday it will make millions for us. So we're waiting for that. Mina Riggs was a high school teacher and worked in the Seattle schools, and then went to California in parish work. At this time, she's working in the archives here. Karen Rossman. Karen is a former DLC administrator, director, and before that, she had a counseling service of over 1,000 clients. She also was a nursing director for an extremely large organization, Group Health Cooperative, where she was on committees where 2,000 nurses under her. I mean, incredible. She's big on women's issues, been on panels. In fact, was on a panel with one of the speakers that'll be at our chapter that's coming up.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Mary Irene Walker is known for her dahlias, but she's also an artist in her own right. Worked with parish work, also a teacher. And Mary White is the first permaculture person I ever met years ago, like more than 10. Mary White redid all of Rosary Heights campus. It was permaculture from the get-go. People came in, and Rosaire and Irene complemented that with their whole area that they had. So we're big on permaculture. We're big on nature, that kind of thing. In addition to that, 5 sisters came here who are now deceased. And those are Cecilia Horn, who died the first year.
Right.
Irene Mandan, who was one of my classmates. Margaret Marie Crow, was big in the hospital work. Anna Kozinski, we know from Poland. And Maureen Rose. So they, that's the group. There are 21 more still left.
Do any of our sisters ever ask you of how could you lose your identity in a merge like this?
Right. Well, they don't ask me. They say that they never could do that.
Oh, okay.
And I understand where they're coming from. I think it depends on what level of identity you're talking about. As a person, we're the compilation of all our experiences and our DNA. We're who we are, and our values really stay the same. We're who we are. And I don't think that identity changes. We bring our whole self. I think that who we are in our careers and our dedication and our essence of what we stand for, it's, for us, Dominican. And that wasn't given up. We gave up the culture. We gave up smallness to merge with, when we merged, we brought you back up to 1,000 people. And so we really, we didn't really give up our identity. We merged it to make it even better by being even more Dominican.
Those of you who came to Adrian also gave up the water and the mountains,
right,
for the cornfields of Adrian.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a delight to come to know you here on campus, Joanne, as well as the other sisters who've fortunately merged with us. And I have great respect for each and every one of you. And it doesn't even feel like there's a separation. It's that Dominican spirit of joy and freedom and respect for one another that is so important.
I think we're united in that.
Yes. God bless you.
It's great to be Adrian.